Drug lords are outwitting Chicago's finest. But there's one cop whose arrest record keeps on growing.
Chicago PD, freeze.
Joe Mijanowski. He was a very good cop. He could make good arrests.
The secret to Mijanowski's success is his contacts with street gangs.
He's developing informants who will work on his behalf. But bit by bit, he was creeping into the dark side.
Mi amigo.
Lured in by gangs, money, and a seductive partner in crime.
In our wildest dreams, we had no idea of what he was up to.
So he was leading a double life, both personally and professionally.
Fellow officers find it best not to challenge him.
And he went ballistic.
Even the FBI begin to wonder, is he a brilliant cop? Or is he a criminal hiding behind his badge?
Freeze, please.
It's against procedure, but it works.
All right, made our job easy today. Come on, get up.
In a situation like Joe Mijanowski, it does start with something small, bit by bit, creeping into the dark side.
Mijanowski starts stealing on drug raids. Usually the way they do it, a cop goes in and you went on a raid or something, you'll seize drugs and money and you won't inventory it all, right? There's 2 kilos, you'll take 1, or you just take the money. People in position of power have done that for years. What Mijanowski did, he took it to an art form.
Mijanowski still thinks he's a good cop, keeping bad guys off the street. So what if there's a little bit of gray? But there are benefits for his police work too, with Padilla providing information and, on one occasion, even selling out a fellow gang member's mother.
I came from work, and when I got home, I came up the stairs, and it was very strange to me that I saw these gentlemen, and I had to go right between them. I went to open the door, and police said, "Evelyn?"
Yes?
And it was like my entire world just fell apart.
Evelyn Miranda has been working with the gangs, delivering and stashing their cocaine and cash.
Who are you?
With the police.
He knew that drugs had came in the day before.
Waitress, eh? Cover, she's under arrest.
While his partner is busy with Miranda, Mijanowski steals half the cocaine and all of the cash. He reports Miranda as having only 1 kilo of cocaine. He pockets the other. Attorney Barry Spector is hired to represent Miranda.
Evelyn could have worked out a deal very early on in this case and taken, probably could have ended up with a sentence lower than what she ended up serving if she would have admitted that she had only 1 kilo of cocaine. She wouldn't do it.
Not having a good day, are we? 1 kilo?
What did you do with the other one?
I see 1. But
There
what?
were 2 kilos.
There's 1.
There were 2.
The ironic thing about this is this is going to trial. Evelyn Miranda is fighting this. She tells the judge, "Your Honor, not only am I guilty of this 1 kilo, I'm twice as guilty. I had 2. The cops stole it."
It was just something that shocked every single one of us. There's not a chance that Joe's corrupt. Just isn't a chance.
Who's going to believe that, somebody like Joe Mijanowski, highly decorated cop, stole this drug courier's cocaine?
Sign at the X.
That probably gave him a sense of being in control and being very powerful.
Joe Mijanowski, once an honorable cop, is sinking fast into the criminal underworld by stealing drugs and guns from the criminals he arrests. Now it's a question of just how far over the line he's prepared to go.
Cover, she's under arrest.
Chicago police detective Joe Medjanowski has been stealing drugs and money from the suspects he arrests. Now working with an illegal street gang, he comes up with a scheme to turn drug shakedowns into a fine art.
It's all about the level at which he did it. You just didn't go in on raids and take. People were set up to lose their drugs.
Medjanowski calls it a gizzo.
The gizzo was Medjanowski's term for a robbery.
Medjanowski has Padilla sell 10 kilos of cocaine, with only 1 kilo being real.
What they would do is they would sell cocaine to somebody, and Padilla would get paid. And then Medjanowski and his partner would pull over the guys who just left with the cocaine.
Freeze! Put your hands up! What the man? What is this? Freeze, gentlemen.
Medjanowski makes it look like everybody is under arrest, even Padilla.
And then Medjanowski sees their cocaine.
Boy, they're in a lot of trouble.
The buyers are carted off. Padilla is released and the drugs are given back to him to resell. Medjanowski walks away with the money. Medjanowski pulls off dozens of robberies, netting hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Whatever caused him to turn to the dark side was now more important than the police department, was more important than his job. But he used the job to further whatever it is that he was doing in his criminal life.
After 15 years of being a police officer, and with the best arrest record in the department, no one suspects Medjanowski is playing both sides.
He's such a confident, cocky guy that he is so believable. That's what kept people like Joe Medjanowski to go untouched.
Medjanowski knows no fear. He knows no boundaries. And his next move is almost unthinkable.
He takes over the gang. He was now one of them. He had made the transformation into that world. And until you start moving the drugs, moving the money, counting the money, living that lifestyle, yeah, he may have gotten a hold of him. He may have liked that, the energy from that.
The status and money he has from running the Latin Lovers only makes Medjanowski greedy for more. He sets his sights on taking over a second outfit his way. Medjanowski is now so confident that he gets careless and makes a big mistake on a drug bust with his new partner.
She was an ATF agent who was working on the same task force as Joe Medjanowski.
She was a supervisor of a unit, and her unit was working with Medjanowski and other Chicago police officers to go after guns and drugs in Chicago.
But the agent notices something disturbing.
She observed Joe taking money and taking drugs that was then not inventoried. That concerned her greatly.
Got some drugs.
The agent catches Medjanowski stealing red-handed.
All you got?
She confronted him. She was one of the first people to do that in law enforcement, and he went ballistic.
Medjanowski fears his double life could be exposed. The agent goes straight to the police chief, determined to get Medjanowski fired.
There's people who are put in circumstances they don't want to be in, but there are people who are just, can be evil, can be bad people.
With his expanding drug operation threatened, Medjanowski risks everything, deciding the best form of defense is attack.
What are you thinking?
He was somebody who could be very violent.
You're threatening me?
I know exactly where you live. I know where kids sleep. I know where kids go to school. I swear, if you don't retract this...
She felt her life was in danger, the life of her children were in danger, because she lived in suburban Chicago and he knew where she lived, and I believe he threatened to shoot into her house. I mean, she and her family, her kids, slept in an interior room. She feared what Mijanowski had said.
With his job on the line, Medjanowski's willing to do anything to protect his double life from being exposed, even if it means taking out a fellow officer and her kids. It's 1992, and the net is closing in on 39-year-old Detective Joseph Medjanowski.
He had an ATF agent accuse him of planting drugs and stealing on a raid.
As a result of that, Joe retaliated against her.
But when the accusations are investigated,
Well, sometimes the feds and the local police don't get along. So the Chicago police would not cooperate with the ATF, and the ATF would not cooperate with Chicago police. So that went nowhere.
aside from the agent's complaint, Medjanowski's record is spotless. Even the death threats are treated as out of character and blamed on the stress and anger of being accused.
They look at that case in isolation. What they didn't do was they didn't look back to see if he had other allegations, similar allegations of brutality.
Other cops won't back the agent up.
Within that institution is this blue line, and you don't cross that blue line. You don't rat out a partner. You don't rat out another cop. You are not a snitch.
It's her word against his. Thanks to the isolated charges of bullying and theft, both the ATF and the Chicago PD investigations rapidly grind to a halt.
If you're going to investigate a public official, such as a cop, you better have your ducks lined up. And so that's how this can get away.
The complaint against Medjanowski is shelved, much to the astonishment of the agent. Not only has she been ignored by her superiors, she still fears for the safety of her family.
To this day, this affects her life. To have another person in law enforcement threaten to kill her and her family. They moved out of that house.
He literally and figuratively feels like he's going to be exposed. And in order to combat that, he took it to the highest level he could think of, which was threatening the lives of this agent and her children. It tells us that he's really terrified of being found out by others and having to admit to himself that he is who he really is. And when fear drives behavior, it becomes the most dangerous behavior.
But the reality is dangerously different. He's a kingpin in the very scene to police. He's got the money, the excitement, and an army of dealers under his thumb. There's only one thing missing from his gang leader identity, a mistress to share it with.
She was one of several couriers who took money down to Miami and brought cocaine back to Chicago.
She flew so much between those two cities, she was dubbed the frequent flyer. That was her title within the organization.
She's an attractive woman. She's 10 or so years younger than Joe. I think he got a sense of importance and excitement.
Narcissists believe that they deserve certain things, that they deserve anything that they want, really. And an extramarital affair is no different than anything else. And because of that, he's lost focus. He's taken his eye off of the things that actually could get him in trouble and become quite vulnerable to other influences because of that.
Eager to impress, Medjanowski lies about his marital status.
And what Joe was telling her was, he left his wife, Nancy. And all he ever would talk about was his son and his daughter. And she just fell in love with this guy. What a great father. His marriage is crumbling, and he's taking care of the kids. And Mijanowski sat her up, within 2 blocks of his own home.
I think that his relationship required him to have more money because he supported her financially, spent a lot of money on her. She had expensive tastes, and it's at that point when he started needing money.
And Medjanowski knows just where to get it. Sinking deeper into the criminal world, he starts to execute bigger, riskier drug deals.
Mijanowski brokered the selling of cocaine from Martyr to another gang leader.
But along with having more money to support and spend on his mistress comes responsibilities that force Medjanowski even deeper into the bowels of the drug trade.
Joe would come over to the house where all this drug activity was going on and just be very comfortable with all the drug dealers who were there.
There was a point at which Padilla said he became shocked, where Medjanowski crossed over. That was a slide he'd never seen with police officers. I think he felt he was in control, but what he didn't realize was, or he forgot, he's dealing with criminals.
He said, I'm getting away with this. Nobody's caught me. I'm making money. I've got this young girlfriend. Life is good.
Medjanowski has thrown a curveball. His top drug supplier and main source of revenue, Juan Casper Martir, decides to branch out on his own in Florida.
Martir left Chicago because there was some heat. Members of his gang didn't feel he's sharing all the proceeds from his drug selling, so he goes to Miami and sets up operations. He's sending cocaine back to Chicago. And so when Martir then moves to Miami, Medjanowski takes over the gang.
Joe Medjanowski is running the Imperial Gangsters, the Latin Lovers, and is now the main dealer to a third gang, the Maniac Latin Disciples, all while still pretending to be a good cop.
And while Martir's in Miami, he gets caught. He is arrested and he's locked up.
His own mind to justify how the people who turned on him were wrong, how they were weak, how they were manipulated to make him look bad versus taking responsibility for his own behavior.
Medjanowski's trial lasts 2 months. Through 250 taped phone calls, the shocking truth is unveiled. Medjanowski is considered the most corrupt cop in Chicago's history.
He was not somebody who was simply protecting criminals. He had become a criminal.
He betrayed the very community he was supposed to protect and serve. Can you trust the police? And when people like Joe Medjanowski are allowed to fester out there, that's a tough question to answer. You can't trust them all.
This job can easily burn you out. I get that part. But to deliberately be disloyal to you to a point where your safety doesn't matter, that's just the unpardonable sin.
In April 2001, Medjanowski is sentenced to life in prison for operating a drug ring that stretched from Miami to Chicago for over a decade, and for being the leader of 4 different Chicago gangs. He is denied any chance of parole, proving that no one is untouchable.
Thank you for watching Investigation Discovery on Demand.
Put your weapons down and step away from the vehicle.
Michael Corbett is a brave cop who loves the thrill of the bust.
Good guy to have in a fight with you.
Oh!
He quickly rises to become the chief of police of a Chicago suburb.
Mike Corbett ran the department with an iron fist.
But with a police department believing itself above the law.
Take your cut. That's what Chicago's always been about.
And a town in the grip of powerful mobsters, Corbett is surrounded by the temptations of corruption.
It was the wild, wild west.
Extortion scams, violent crimes, and extramarital affairs that end with deadly consequences could just be routine mob activity.
People were reluctant to talk to the FBI.
Or is there a deeper, darker secret? Has one of Chicago's finest become corrupted by his own power? There are those in positions of power who do evil and who only think they are untouchable.
Saying who got the positions there, who was in office there, where contracts were. And of course, once you have some influence in high places, you can arrange things to occur in that jurisdiction so that you can be protected.
Nothing happens in Willow Springs without the approval of the Chicago Mafia. The mob even have officers from the Willow Springs Police Department working for them, as Corbett learns on his very first patrol.
The department was notorious for getting drivers going through town, and then they would arrest them or give them a ticket.
They pull over 6 or 7 cars, and his partner goes to take care of it and ends up not ever writing a ticket. Corbett is baffled by this. Finally he says, okay, what's the deal? And his partner hands him money.
It's your cut.
It's Corbett's first taste of police corruption.
I don't think someone wakes up in the morning and says, gee, I'm going to be a corrupt cop. I don't think that happens that way.
Lured by the promise of easy money, it's not long before Corbett tries it for himself.
You never forget that first time. And that's the thrill that hooks you. It's like an addict.
Thank you, sir. You have yourself a good day.
You too.
And that's what kind of hooked him.
We make our choices in life. Those choices determine who we are.
All the money Corbett extorts goes to the chief of police.
How much is in here?
7,000.
The young and impressionable Corbett goes along with the extortion scheme. In return, he gets a small cut of the take, and, shockingly, the rest goes to the mafia.
Take your cut. That's what Chicago's always been about. That's what makes the mob go. That's what makes it run. To have people kind of greasing the wheels for all of their schemes to occur. That's just the way that the machine works.
The fact that a police officer would make sense to him as far as having rules there that other people have to follow, but that he does not have to follow. Michael Corbett likely had personality traits pre-existing that were priming him to become somebody who was very comfortable breaking laws and taking advantage of others.
To the rookie cop,
Pat, he had come into wealth. He had that Burt Reynolds mustache and Corvette and the cowboy hat and the garbage bags of money.
Corbett has graduated to a new level of wealth and builds a $500,000 home with a swimming pool.
If you drove by his house, it looked like a drug lord's house. 6,000, 7,000 square feet. But he had a Corvette. He had a boat. That's not bad.
His flashy behavior starts to raise eyebrows with town officials. But Corbett's mob connections mean no one acts on their suspicions.
None of the people in the community did anything. Had they complained about his power or why is he driving this car, maybe the world would have been different.
Someone like Michael Corbett doesn't have boundaries. He doesn't recognize boundaries in himself because he's entitled to everything. The town is his to work the way he wants to work. He can take what he wants, use who he wants, become what he wants without any repercussions whatsoever.
Alan Masters was friends with a private investigator, and he was able to put a listening device on his home phone, and he captured a telephone conversation between Diane and her boyfriend. During that phone call, there was kind of a salacious conversation regarding their sex behavior the night before.
Alan heard it and went crazy, said he was going to kill her.
Jealous and hurt, Masters is also afraid that his wife knows too much about his illegal activities.
And I believe Diane was going to blow the whistle on Alan in regard to a lot of things that Alan was doing.
Take care of this.
Diane knew a lot about Alan Masters and probably knew a lot about Mike Corbett.
She knew too much, and I think Diane made a mistake of threatening Alan.
She was going to report the Masters' activities to the IRS.
For Masters, there's only one option. He asks Corbett to do the unthinkable, help kill and dispose of his wife.
I need her gone. Well, so I have a deal. I have a deal.
Corbett agrees. He now thinks he can literally get away with murder.
Sometimes Narcissists can ultimately become psychopathic narcissists. There is literally nothing off the table in terms of what he's willing to pursue. And to participate in a murder, you have to have a pretty shallow conscience, if not a complete lack of conscience, because he knows the difference between right and wrong. He just doesn't care.
Yeah. Patrolman Robert Olson hears the gunshots.
I heard 2 shots which came from the vicinity of Willow Springs Road Bridge in the canal. I drove towards the canal.
Olson is a rare breed in Willow Springs, an honest cop, and the one person Corbett doesn't want showing up at the scene.
As I was driving down towards the canal, I noticed that there was a vehicle that had illuminated its headlights. At that point in time, I got a little nervous. I unstrapped my gun, and the vehicle started coming towards me. When it came towards me, I was able to identify it as Mike Corbett's private car.
Believing himself above the law, corrupt police chief Michael Corbett is now involved in the murder of Diane Masters. He thinks he's got away with it. But leaving the crime scene, Corbett runs into patrolman Robert Olson.
He pulled up to my window. I recognized that it was Mike Corbett.
Everything okay, Chief?
And he told me, there's no reason for you to go down to the canal.
It's nothing. I checked it out. Head back to the station.
Corbett's fate lies in Olson's hands.
Mike said he checked the area out, and there was no one down there shooting. At that point in time, Mike pulled away. When he pulled away, I made a U-turn and pulled out and never went down to the canal.
Over the last 20 years, Police Chief Michael Corbett has worked both sides of the law. In deep with the mob, he's extorted millions of dollars, is involved in arson, and is an accomplice in an unsolved murder.